Good morning, everyone. The past 2 years have been very difficult for us. Many of us have lost our loved ones or dear ones to this pandemic, and it was tougher as we could not bid them a proper farewell. We could not give them the final hug or kiss that they deserve. Though we have the assurance that we will meet them on the other shore, the pain of living in this earth without them lingers on. We all have pain, grief, heartaches, and sorrows. But how do we deal with it? We are told, rejoice in the Lord always. But when we have grief that is beyond our endurance, we wonder, how do we rejoice? Well, that has been my question. How to be happy? How to be glad when I'm going through such tough times? When I'm unable to even put a smile on my face, how can my heart be happy? So the Bible gives us some example about people who went through tough times, pains that were beyond their endurance, but they came out of it with the help of God. How did they deal with their pains, their heartaches, and their sorrows? They lamented. What does lament mean? Lament is a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. So when they were going through tough times, they were not shy about it. They did not hide it, but they brought their pains, their sorrow, their heartaches before God, and they laid it bare before Him. They wanted God to know that they were going through tough times, that they could not handle what they were going through. And sometimes we wonder, why do we have this grief, these problems, this pain? Sometimes it is allowed by God, just like God allowed pain and sorrow in Job's life. Sometimes it is because of some hasty decision, wrong decisions, or sometimes it is because of some hidden sin, like David, and we see even Israelites who went through tough times because they decided to follow other gods. So we have nearly 1/3 of Psalm on lamenting. So when the psalmist went through tough times, went through unknown pains, sorrow that they could not endure, they turned to God and they wrote beautiful psalm for us to follow. And today I would like to share to you my thoughts on Psalm 13. Psalm 13 was written by David when he was going through tough days. It was not a happy day for him or a happy time for him. He was pressed by his enemies on all sides. He was broken and he was lost, and he felt that he was forsaken by God. That was the pain that he was going through. And when he was going through all these tough times, times beyond his endurance, he decided to turn to God. He decided to talk with God rather than look at his sorrow, weep over it and brood over it. He decided to talk to God, tell God what he was going through. He was not shy that he was going through tough times, but rather he could identify that he was going through tough time. And we see him begin it with, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? That was the kind of pain that he was going through. He felt he was even forsaken by God. And we go on to see that he starts complaining. How long will my enemy triumph over me? That was his complaint before God. He was hopeless. He was not happy. He was in despair. But out of all this, as he starts pouring out his heart to God, as he starts telling God his problem, his feelings, his emotions, we see that in verse 3, he starts asking God for help. He's bold enough to ask God for help. This shows that he's trusting God. When we have a problem and when we approach a person for help, when we share a problem to someone, we expect that person to help us. We have some trust and confidence in that person. Only then we can share our problem. That is the faith and trust David had on God. So we see him from being in despair to trusting God slowly. And as we see him end this psalm, he ends it very beautifully. The problem is not resolved. He's still going through these tough times and he's still in pain. Yet he ends it very beautifully, saying, I trust in your unfailing love. No matter what happens, no matter how this problem ends, whether it is going to end the way I want or any other way, he decides to say, I will sing to the Lord, for he has been good to me. So from being in despair, he goes on to being in hope, and he learns to trust in God. So lamenting is a way that the saints of the old brought their heartaches before the Lord. If they could bring their heartaches, their pains and their sorrows to God, we can also boldly bring our heartaches, our pains to God. It is okay for us to cry. It is okay for us to weep before God. Be humble enough to pour out our hearts to God. And when we go through tough times which we feel are beyond our endurance, let us pour out. Like Jeremiah says in Lamentations 2:19, pour out your hearts like water in the presence of God. Let us not hide our pains. Let us not hide our troubles. For God is a God who knows everything, who sees us through everything, but who is just waiting for us to pour it out to Him so that He can help us. So I would like to end it with a little saying by Tim Gustafson. Even when God permits such pain, He grieves with us. Made as we are in His image, He must lament too. So we have a God who sees us suffer. We have a God who lets us suffer. But we have a God who is with us when we suffer. That is the assurance that we have. So when you are going through a tough time, remember that there is a God who is willing to suffer with us, who is willing to cry with us, who is willing to walk the rough road with us. Thank you. Have a good day.
Christ in the vessel, we can smile at the storm. Smile at the storm. Smile at the storm. With Christ in the vessel, we can smile at the storm. As we